Welcome to the Alternative Dog Moms podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom for more than 10 years. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I began raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott from the Believe in Dog podcast. For more than 10 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned in case it could help you too. As the Alternative Dog Moms, Kimberly and I are bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and the brilliant people we're meeting along the way. Now let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
So I'm very excited to meet our guest today. Now, this is one where you're very familiar with the product, and
Yes.
It's a newer thing to me. And as I was digging into preparing for this, I got really excited. Like, how has this not really been on my radar? So I have lots of questions. I'm very excited. Tim Mitchum of Winpro, welcome.
Well, hey, it's nice to be here. I appreciate it very much. It's always fun to hang out with Kimberly and meet a new friend of hers. They're always nice
we've known
people.
each other for a long time. I want to just share my first experience with Winpro, which is I guess I probably got an email from you, like
Yes.
100 years ago, and as a blogger, I turned down one today. I get emails from brands all the time who have the next best great thing, and we want to send this to you to try it. And usually I'm just like, no, I'm good, because I don't like to treat my dogs like lab rats, testing out product after product. And I also believe that with supplements, you need to use them over an extended period of time to really see if it works. And I just was like, I don't really want to do this. So I saw this email. I was going to turn it down. I reached out to Scott to see if he got the email. And I think he got the email too. So we were talking about it. I'm like, I don't know. Then, another friend of ours is like, oh, well, it's a chewable. So, it's terrible ingredients. And it's like, but at the same time, I had a dog, Sydney, who was recovering from a partial cruciate tear, had horrible mobility at a young age. I think she was probably back then, I can't do the math, but let's just say she was I do know. She was 8 years old. Was she 8 years old?
I was going to say she was 8 or 9, I think.
Yeah, she was, yes. And so I feel like she was younger than, she might have been 7 or 8. So this might have been 2017, 18. So she would, like when she would get up from the bed, it was like really hard for her to get up. She couldn't really run and play with the other dogs. And I was just sort of like, maybe, just maybe this is something that would help her. So this is something that I never did before, and I still don't do today. But usually it's a good idea to start filming things. And so probably after I said, yeah, I'll give it a try, I was taking Sydney outside, had my phone, decided to just record her getting up and how she was walking slowly outside just to get that on there. And I'm so grateful today that I did. And I think the way it happened is like, probably the day that I received it, I filmed her. And 48 hours later, I took another video of her doing the same path, running out the door. And she was, counter surfing. She's jumping on me. She's playing with her siblings. And I know they talk about like the honeymoon period, but usually it's not within 48 hours. But what blew me away was like a year later, I still had videos of her running around, playing. She was up until the end when she passed, when she got sick and passed away, she was active and she was on Winpro that entire time. And so it has been a supplement that has been part of my dog's lives since, because however many years ago that was, 7, 8 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, I have not had any other experience except for it. It's great with my dog's mobility, and my puppy gets it, even though she's 2 years old and not technically a puppy anymore. Apollo, who's going to be 6 on Thursday, he gets it every day. And Zoe, who is 11, gets it every day. And again, all of them are running around. They're active. They're doing really great. So that is my introduction to Winpro. So I would like to just ask Tim, tell us about Winpro. How did this get started? What's the active ingredient? How did you guys connect? this active ingredient to the joint health for our dogs?
Yeah, so it really started with a guy named Bill Bernardo. And Bill Bernardo was from Algona, Iowa, really small town back in the 60s. And he kind of always talks about the story of that he was didn't have an amazing childhood growing up in a small town, kind of bullied. Some older brothers bullied him, or older brothers' friends kind of bullied him. And so he was like this loner guy in Algona, Iowa. And then his dad brought home a dog one day named Yankee. And Yankee then went with him to school, followed him around. He talks about how Yankee saved his life from a rabid rat one time, and Bill reached down Yankee's throat and pulled a chicken bone out at the same time. So they like owed each other their lives, he says, like only two strays could. And that really kindled the flame for just Bill's love for how transformative a relationship with a pet can be. And so he, went on with other things in life. He eventually ended up in a role at a company that was collecting blood and then using that for lots of different health benefit reasons for the livestock animals. And so he was tasked at starting a product line for performance racehorses. Now, in the performance racehorse world, they get this thing called bleeders, and it's when they're extremely stressed, they start bleeding from their nose. It's a whole inflammation issue. And so he was tasked with that. But he had a moment. He was in these stables with these big horses, terrified of them. And he had 5 dogs at home. And he's like, well, what if this science of plasma works for the canine world? That would be an amazing thing for him to attach this second phase of his life to really focusing on bringing that to the canine world. And so he did that. And the science really comes from Iowa State University back in the 1980s. And as the story goes, they had a really bad mortality issue with weaning piglets. And so they tried environmental changes, they tried diet, nutrition, and nothing was really solving that problem. And so they had been working on this spray-dried plasma matrix, and they started sprinkling that on the starter diet of the piglets, and the mortality rate dropped dramatically. And what they found out, and has continued to be proven out over time, and this has been, over like 40 years ago, that the plasma has a massive impact on reducing inflammation in the body, allowing the body to return to normal, to fight its own battles, essentially. And, like you were saying, Erin, this is new to you. This has been around for a long, 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 long time. It's just now making its kind of way into the companion animal world, but it's been through every livestock feed animal species to keep them healthy along the way, where nothing else has been able to do that. And so all we do at Winpro is we take that science of plasma, put it into a form that is, palatable to a dog, now cats. And we put that out to the world as we believe, and we believe that the science proves it, that plasma is the ingredient that has such a dramatic impact on the inflammation inside of an animal, that if we do that, then get rid of the inflammation as much as that plasma can do, they'll heal themselves. Their system is built to heal themselves. So we don't have to boost anything or solve any problems. We just have to get excessive inflammation out of the way. And that's what the product really, really does. So like when you take Sydney, and it's my same story. And if I'm rambling on, you can just stop me. But my same story with Roxy up here I married into her, by the way. Ended up loving her, but I married into her. I'm more of a big dog guy. But Roxy, my wife, when I married her, had a Chihuahua. Ended up loving that dog. But it was a tough go in the beginning. But she I can't remember exactly. I think she was about 12, and she really hadn't jumped up on the couch or the bed for years. And I'm in Iowa, so the scientists from Iowa State. Most of us are from Iowa. One of the investors, who's a friend of mine, said, "Hey, well, I've got this product. This local guy here, mad scientist around kind of this plasma stuff. Give it a try. You never know." And so I gave Roxy the same hip and joint product that Sydney got, and within 15 days, she was like a new dog. And what I realized, and I tell this story, and Kimberly's heard this story 1,000 times, is that she could always jump. It just wasn't worth it, right? The pain, it just wasn't worth it. So all these new patterns and habits get created, whether you pick them up or they just stop doing this. But once that pain goes away, they're like, oh, it's worth it today. And then they start jumping again. And I'm like, oh, that's an amazing thing to go and promote to the world and all the pet parents and everybody who loves animals. Like, because they can be active a lot longer than a lot of dogs are doing right now. There's life in the legs still, if they could just get some of that pain and inflammation away.
Yeah.
The thing that got me really excited when I was looking into it, so I had a strange health issue over 10 years ago that was actually like inflammation in my spinal cord. And it actually had me partially paralyzed for a period of time. And it's still to this day considered idiopathic. And then I had it happen again a couple years later. And I started working with a functional medicine doctor, and she had me on IgG to bring the inflammation down. And I saw that that's a component of your product. And then that got me really excited.
Yeah, I take IgG actually every day too. It's in the bovine form. But yeah, inside of plasma, there are these blood proteins that have just massive impacts on reducing inflammation. So that doesn't surprise me. And in fact, we know about plasma injections and all these things in the human world. So it's really not a leap in like science or anything. It's just it hasn't ever really brought over to the canine world because, you know, the marketing around a glucosamine or a product like that is so massive that I think people just kind of bypass something that it doesn't fit into those little categories. But that's changing. There's a lot more education around plasma that's starting to really come out. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's really starting to happen in small bits.
Yeah, I know somebody that did platelet-rich plasma injections for their shoulder on the human side. So again, this all started clicking for me about why this is such a powerful anti-inflammatory. So now I'm really excited to try it with my old guy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's my most fun product to give out when I know there's a dog that has some mobility issues, because it's like, oh, please, I really think this will help, because it just tends to prove out.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I love about it is what most people that I speak to, especially specifically in the raw feeding community, in the conventional community, people are like, oh yeah, let me try it. But in the raw feeding community, it's just like, oh, well, it's a chewable. And chewables have gotten such a bad rap because of the inactive ingredients. And my thing is, if I trust the brand and the people behind the brand, and if the product works, I don't really care. What I like about it being a chewable is that it's not another thing that I have to add to a meal.
Yeah.
They think it's a treat. So back when I went and got this and pulled it out here, one of the dogs came walking up to me. Two of them actually came walking up to me because they're like, "Oh, it's time," but it's like, not yet. But they know the drawer that it's in the kitchen, and I stock up on it because it is a daily thing in our house. But yeah, it's super easy to give to them. All of them take it with no issues, and they enjoy it.
Yeah, I had the question too about the inactive ingredients, because that is something that we hear commonly is people get concerned that it's like, what's this other stuff in here to make it palatable for the dog? And is that still as like clean as the rest of like the active ingredient?
Yeah, so we have very clean inactive ingredients just to form the chew, right? And we go to as far as clean as we can go on the inactive ingredients and keep it very, very small, because we don't really need that much. The majority of the product is plasma. Like that's the mass amount of the volume of the product. And then depending on which product that we're talking about, we don't have to like layer in a bunch of ingredients to make up some kind of like nutritional panel, because we're not trying to do anything with nutrition. We're just simply giving the dog or the cat the power of plasma, and then just wrapping a couple active ingredients around there that are just common to the space. So like a calming would have like theanine and taurine in it, let's say, and that's it. Nothing else for any type of active. And then like the hip and joint would just be balanced collagen. So we're not trying to nutrition our way to results. We're trying to have plasma go in and say, hey, we're going to take away the inflammation that's excessive, return the dog or the cat to normal, and then they'll heal themselves. Like, and we all know that, like, if our gut is normal, we're healing ourselves, nonstop. And so that's essentially what we do.
And so what about bioavailability? Is it able to be absorbed, it's able to be absorbed through their digestive tract in that way?
Do you know I love this question? And before I did not like this question, because this is the question. So we're in vet offices now, and we're starting to gain a lot more traction in vet offices. That is the number one question we get that we never had a great answer to. That now, I don't know if it's a great answer, but it is the answer, and it's factual. So the company that we get our plasma from has done hundreds and hundreds of studies around all of bioavailability, just in different species and all these kind of things. And they also will have this exact same answer. We don't know exactly why it is available when it's fed orally. What we do know is that when you do that, because we have all the studies to show this, that when you feed plasma, it reduces the pro-inflammatory cytokines markers and increases the anti-inflammatory cytokines. So there is a gap of nature, God, divine something that says, if you do this, this happens. Now, exactly how that happens, nobody knows 100% for sure. But we test before and after, and we have all those markers that say, if you feed this orally fed plasma, pro-inflammatory cytokines will go down and anti-inflammatory cytokines will go up. And then that is a factual marker, but then you just see the results. You can see the results from that. But it's a question that is a big question. But nobody has the exact answer why that happens, because it's not on that cellular level that we can tell you exactly how that works. But that's the answer. Is that a satisfactory answer to you?
I'm happy with it.
I mean, yeah, if you could show, that there's studies showing like this goes down, this goes up.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like just that simple. And before, I never really had a good answer for that, I don't feel like.
Yeah. I mean, so you have multiple products. On the dog side, I know that there's hip and joint calming, recovery. Is it now training? And you have a gut one. So is it just the 4?
So we have allergy.
Oh yeah,
which is actually our number one selling product. We have hip and joint, we have calming, we have gut health, and then we have recovery. Those are our 5 core products. And then we just did add last year a dental stick, which I was completely like skeptical of. I'm like, how does this work if it's not scraping something away? And then we added a daily care product and a probiotic, prebiotic meal topper, which is plasma based as well, with a bunch of probiotics actually grown here in Des Moines, Iowa, which is kind of fun. And then we have a cat dental bite, which is a bunch of studies around cat health, dental health, which I guess is a nightmare. I don't have any cats personally, but it's a nightmare. And this is a product that is really, really good. And then a meal topper for cats too.
My cat, I mean, he's since passed, but he was crazy picky when it came to treats. He wasn't a fan of the topper, but he
Yeah.
loved the treats. And it doesn't keep the teeth clean, but what it does is it makes the plaque so that it doesn't stick. So you can just click it right off. It just comes,
Mm.
or if they have something harder that they're playing with, I guess. I mean, he was never really into anything like that. But yeah, I can just lift up. If I saw a plaque, I just click it right off, and it was just very porous.
Oh,
And so,
interesting.
yeah. So it's just, he did really good. I mean, I would give him, he would want more, but I gave him two a day.
Yeah, we've been really pleasantly surprised about the dental bites because cats are so picky.
Hmm.
But the plasma really lends to cats a lot. The meal topper, that's been about 50-60%, could go either way depending on the cat. But the dental bites for sure have
Yeah.
really been probably 90% palatability for most cats, which is great.
Yeah. So when it comes to the allergies, because that's the one. Oh, and by the way, just side note, congratulations on the commercial. I was like so excited to just be walking through the room and seeing Winpro across my TV screen. And I was just like, "Oh, I know them."
The company Kimberly built.
I was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm yelling at Johan. I'm like, we have that. And I go in the kitchen. I'm like, this is what and he's looking at me like, okay. With the allergy, is it environmental allergies that it focuses on?
Well, it tends to be a lot of that because of all the toxins that are kind of like just in our world now. Like
Mhm.
there's so many toxins and so many different types of allergies and skin irritation. So what you call an allergy could be a lot of different things. But yeah, seasonal and environmental allergies is typically where our product, it really helps when a lot of others don't. And it goes back to the same function. There's no secret in our product. It's if there's inflammation being caused by some external or internal factor, our product will help.
So, is there anything specific to where it's sourced from? Like you had said that you take a bovine product and this is was it porcine? I never know how to say
Yeah,
that.
porcine. Yeah,
Yeah.
or porcine.
Product. Like, is there anything specific to the sourcing in like the species of the animal, or is it just that those are easier to source from? Or
Um, well, a couple things. One, it's easier and more readily available to source from. Porcine is more, I guess I would say, transportable in the international world as like acceptable because there's been some bovine challenges in the past that make that a little bit harder.
mad
The
cow, or
Yeah, and interesting enough, when people think about transmittable things like that, one of the only things that was still allowed in during that was plasma because it's fractionated to a level where it will carry no meat protein like disease or any type of disease. So I think that that's actually really an interesting thing to bring up. And then also the connection to the species and the kind of like the parity in the species works really, really well.
and it says that on your website, like that the facilities are inspected by the USDA, and like I guess people worry about like factory farming and things like that. At least in the people who are listening to our podcast.
Yeah, 100%. So we only work with reputable, like FDA inspected, USDA inspected facilities, make sure that everything is on the up and up. And the one thing that we're really proud about is that what we're taking away from these facilities, it used to be a waste product. And so we're taking something and turning it into something that benefits the health of animals that we love that used to be a throwaway product. So we do feel like it's our way of being part of the sustainability movement and recycling what we can that would have just got thrown away anyways. But once we pull that from those facilities, it goes through massive amounts of extensive kill steps, cleaning, fractionation, UV lighting. Like it's a really, really long process to get it into a form that is spray dried plasma that we can then use as an ingredient into other products.
So there are now products on the market, mill toppers. I've seen a couple of them that are like freeze dried cow blood. How does that differ from blood plasma?
Well, I don't know what those products are. Can you explain that a little? It's just they're just saying freeze dried cow blood,
Yeah, beef blood.
beef blood. Wow.
And I mean, it is, and they don't claim to do anything. It's mostly for palatability. So if you have a
Yeah.
picky dog, you sprinkle that over their food, and it's supposed to be very tasty.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd have to look a little bit more into that, but one thing I would say is that what we pull out of there's a lot of things that could be in blood.
Mhm.
We pull out the good components, the most powerful components of plasma inside of that. So we don't have a hodgepodge mixture of blood. We fractionate it out to get the serum, albumin, IgG, IgA, the really powerful components of blood to use into our product. So not knocking them, it could be
Yeah.
very helpful, but it's definitely not what we're doing. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I always like to ask because people will latch on to, well, I can just get this and it only costs this much and assume that it'll do the same thing when it's like, no, it's in the same, like state, but it's not the
Yeah.
same city.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Like our stuff is dosed very specifically. You wouldn't be doing that in that situation. So it might be a feel good thing, but I'm not sure it's actually going to do a whole bunch of remedy effect on anything.
Right.
I actually think Winpro is very reasonably priced compared to a lot of the other ones on the market.
Agreed.
Yeah, I do too. We don't get a ton of pushback on that from, reasonable people. Um, I believe so too, especially when you consider that some vets currently carry the hip and joint product that Kimberly's using. So, we do now have a vet exclusive product, but they're still carrying the core products because they've seen the results. And those results, vets are very hard to break into a lot of times. It comes from the customers bringing the dog back 3 months later, and the dog jumps up on the table versus couldn't hardly walk in before. And then they're like, okay, what did you do in the 3 months or whatever? And they're like, oh, I just found Winpro. So that's how we get into the vet offices.
What
Yeah.
is the difference with the veterinary formula?
It's just a little bit higher dose. And we also added some bovine plasma just to kind of get some more of the good stuff inside of there. So it's just a supercharged version of our core products.
Now I want that.
I actually talked to you guys with my rescue group about Winpro, and our director, she's known about you guys for as long as I've known about you guys. And so,
Which rescue is that?
Save a Mutt here in Washington.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about it, and it's one of those things where, I mean, you remember, I think it was last year, the year before last, when you were speaking to Kathy and I, and because of Winpro allergy and just boosting her dog's diet, she was able to reduce the amount of allergy medicine that she was giving to her dog, and so I think, for a lot of people, it may not give you like no more allergy medicine ever, but it can get you on that road to starting to dial back on the allergy medicine. And that's what I loved about the hip and joint when I started using that. Sydney was constantly on pain medication. And I was able to wean her off of that over time where she just didn't need it. She would have some days where maybe she overdid it, but for the most part,
Right.
she went ahead, she healed, and she was a better dog. And I mean, I'm not saying that this cured her cruciate tear. That took quite some time to heal. But, it did help her heal, and she didn't have to have surgery for it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So again, not trying to make promises for people, but that was just my experience with it. So that's why I'm just a big advocate of this product, because yeah, I've seen nothing but great results. And I also use the calming. So over, on New Year's Eve, everybody was enjoying their calming shoes all day long. I mean, two of my dogs don't have a problem with fireworks. They're not fans, but they don't have a problem with it. But Bella decided that this year was going to be the year where she was going to freak out.
Meltdown.
But she eventually, settled when she realized no one else was like, screaming and going, "What is happening?" She was just like, "Okay, well, I will sit right next to you and fall asleep." And she was fine. But yeah, I emptied an entire, well, I wouldn't say it wasn't a full container, but I finished off a container of the calming. It's now the home of another treat, because
That's awesome.
Nessie wants to fight the fireworks.
Of course she does.
We've got a big old Bernedoodle, and I don't even know if she knows there's fireworks going off. She just could care less about anything, which is amazing.
So is it okay to give multiple different products like at the same time? Like if I have my old guy on arthritis, but I also want to put him on the calming, or is there any contraindication for that?
No, there isn't. And in fact, what's really cool about plasma and the kind of the naturalness of plasma is that you can't overdose at all. We get, I don't know, every month we have people call us up and say, "Hey, our dog got into," it used to be worse when we had pouches. They got into the pouch and ate the whole bag. Are they going to be okay? And we were like, yeah, they should be fine. They're just going to have a little upset tummy. But there is no issues with that at all. So what I do, so for my regimen, I guess regimen is such a strong word for my routine. Daisy gets a meal topper. She gets a hip and joint. She's a 2-year-old, but she's got big joints. And I've just seen the power of hip and joint. So I want her legs to be as active as possible for as long as possible, right? And she's a mean frisbee. She goes crazy for frisbee. And I did teach her how to catch one in the air on that. So I was really excited about that. That was my big accomplishment for last year. And then she gets a dental stick Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Now I give her one almost every day, but my wife only does Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, because you don't need with our dental stick really. It doesn't need to be a daily thing. So it's usually 2 to 3 sticks a week is plenty.
That's good to know. Yeah, I was thinking just even, Kimberly, I have Nessie, who's my younger girl, you have Bella, who's your younger girl. And because of the fact that I've had dogs in the past that have torn a CCL, and, Nino, thank goodness, is pretty good, but he gets this bicep tendinitis, which who knew that was a thing in dogs, because he jumps up and down. He's a 70-pound guy, So just sort of preventively speaking, I want to be more proactive this time around now that I have another youngster in the house, because I don't want to deal with these issues down the road.
And that's a perfect challenge that people would enter into our world with, is that tendinitis or something that you just see a change. I think that'd be really amazing results for you and that 100%.
Because you were talking, I would love to see Nino. He used to kind of stand at the back door and he's so tall and so big that you'd almost think it was a person, because he'd be on his hind leg. And it's that's the one thing that he hasn't done. We have him, he's really mobile. He run around the yard, go on walks, but that's the jumping, and he does kind of pull that front leg a little bit. That's kind of his his things that we've noticed as he's got, because he's like 11, he's 11-year-old, 70-pound pit bull,
But I want to warn you, there is one big side effect that I did not know about when it comes to Winpro, and that is your dog may return to normal. And a lot of people get used to the old dog.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
Or-
just it. I remember Sydney for probably about 2 weeks. Sydney got away with murder.
Yeah.
Because I was so excited. I walk into the kitchen and she's standing looking around what's on the counter. And I'm just like, oh my God, look at Sydney on the counter. And of course, praising her for all this bad behavior. I come in the home and she's jumping up and hitting at me. And she was a big, thick, strong girl. And but she would come at me and, dragging me down the trail when we would go for a walk. All of that. She was allowed to get away with murder because I hadn't seen the behavior in so long that I was just so excited. And then I had to sort of rein it back in where it's like, okay.
Right. It's a real thing. And we always get emails like, hey, I didn't realize how much I liked the laying around in the corner. Now I'm going on walks and I'm being begged to go outside again. So it's a cool problem to have.
Yeah.
Are there any health conditions in which plasma would not be a good idea? Like if they have cancer, is there any way it could promote growth of a tumor? Is there anything like that to be concerned about?
No, we haven't had nothing like that. There's been just the plasma is such an amazing ingredient. It's like a gift from Mother Nature that there just hasn't been any issues around any of that stuff.
And I have a question for you. What is it about porcine or porcine plasma that it works not only for horses but for dogs? What is it about the pig that makes it so versatile?
So the answer to that is just, at least with dogs, is that it's a very between from a pig to a dog, the species are very similar when it comes to biology, right? Anatomy. It's a very close fit, but it can be really injected into any species. It really is not species. It's just, for us, porcine is available, it's predictable, and it has a really good connection from dog to porcine. But you could use it for any species. It would translate just fine.
Hence the kitty cat line.
Kitty cat,
and
yeah.
I don't know why I said kitty cat like that, but it's just
I don't know why. I don't know why I just didn't think about why you said kitty cat like that. I should have thought something.
So is the cat a new line? 'Cause I don't have cats either, but
yeah. So we got a ton of comments and requests hey, do you have this for cats? I come from an era where you are a dog person or a cat person. I didn't know that people in reality could be both, but that's changed over, whatever. And in fact, our founder has, I think, 3 cats and 4 dogs, and cats walk with the dogs on leashes when they go around the neighborhood.
That's so crazy to me.
I'd love to see that.
Right? Isn't that right? Isn't that crazy? I'll see if I can. I'm sure I've got something somewhere, but we knew that the science, and there's studies around the cats, especially around the dental stuff, that is pretty remarkable, that we knew that the science would carry forward. And then we knew, oh, well, our current customers have cats, so let's create a product, and then we'll, kind of go after, the cat space, which we actually think is very underserved when it comes to supplementation, or just people thinking about that. Maybe it's a little bit, and they've got a lot of problems. Their mouths are real problems. And plasma is amazing for the inflammation and the bacteria and the reducing of that kind of stuff in the gum. So I think that there's a really good opportunity there for sure. And they're not, and cat people aren't crazy. Apparently, they're just normal people.
They're passionate. I always felt like cat people, they earn that rep, because how would I feel if I went into a pet store? Because I'm a dog person, and I am a privileged dog person where I walk into most pet stores, the entire store feels like my playground.
Mm.
Everything is about dogs. Whereas when you look for the cat section, if it's an aisle, you're lucky. A lot of times it could be just a wall. Here's the cat
Yeah.
section. It's just like cats don't really get the attention that dogs get. And it's always been an interesting conversation that I've had since I've been a pet blogger, going out to events. Most of the events I go to, of course, are going to be dog focused because my content is dog focused. But when I go to Super Zoo, there is some cat stuff, but Erin, do you remember any cat? Granted, we weren't looking for it, but the only thing I could say is, like, for instance, green juju, you can feed that stuff to cats.
Like maybe we walked by some like houses or towers, like
Yeah,
maybe maybe.
maybe.
Litter,
But that's
around
it. It's just like,
litter.
Yeah, litter.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe some kind of litter.
it's very dog food. So my theory is simply that if everywhere I went, I had to hunt for things for my pet that I love and is just as valuable as those dogs over there, I think I'd be a little crazy too.
Yeah, that might be some of it, but they've been
That's
they've
just
been
my
really
theory.
they've been super receptive, and it's been really fun to kind of enter into that space too, for sure.
That's so great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for introducing me to this product.
Thank you.
So long ago. This is basically, out of all of the products I've used over the past decade, this is the only one that has been consistent. I've changed everything else except for this. This is just like, if someone, yeah, it's pointless. It works. I hope you do try it, Erin, because
I'm excited to try it. Yeah.
And I'm going to find that email that I sent you, because I know you responded back essentially saying, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And then I'm like, are you sure? It's kind of different.
It's like, and it's so crazy because it turns out but I do want to wrap this up with one hint, because when it comes to saving money on products, I'm really good at it. And one thing that I found is I shop between the Winpro site and Amazon, because sometimes Amazon will have a special coupon and they limit how many you can order, but you can get an additional 15-20% off of things. And so I will go and check Amazon, and sometimes it's on a single product, sometimes it's on the dual. So today I ordered the allergy and hip. So I'm getting 2 containers, but you'll get a discount for it. And it'll be a better price than the regular price on Winpro. But it's important to subscribe to Winpro's newsletter because they have really good sales. And that's when I can, I'll order things. And plus, it's easier also to do things on a subscription basis because then you get that extra discount too. Just want to put that out there for people who are, even though I think that these it is an affordable price. If you are concerned, especially if you have a multi-dog home, that is how I'm able to always have Winpro on hand.
Yeah. And I'm happy to give your listeners a coupon code that if you want to put in the show notes or something like that.
We would love one.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. I'll send that over to you, and then you can put it in there for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, everybody, check the show notes.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.